Welcome to the 47G podcast. We're really happy to have Artur Rehi with us today. He is a military blogger based in Estonia and has joined us here in Salt Lake City to talk about what he's doing. And most of his blogging and vlogging is related to the war in Ukraine. Tell us, how did you start there, and what are your objectives in vlogging about the war in Ukraine?
Well, I started my YouTube channel in 2011, so I've been a YouTuber for 10-something years, but in 2015 I went to Hollywood to become an actor. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I was there 3 years an actor, and I was supposed to become an actor. I got a work visa and everything, which is quite hard in LA for an actor to get a work visa. But then the draft letter came, let's call it that. It's actually a conscription letter in Estonia, but I think US might understand as a draft letter much better. So I had to go to the Estonian conscription or army. So from Hollywood Boulevard straight to Estonian forest into the trench with an AK-4. That was a very good contrast. But I have been doing videos all this time in Hollywood, and when I went to the army, but it was not allowed at all. But kind of broke the rules and was a little bit rebellious and did it secretly. Got into a lot of trouble for it, but then the videos got a lot of views, and then suddenly the army started ordering videos from me, or make an introduction to 152mm howitzer or stuff like that videos. So I did them. Then the conscription ended. That was 2019 June, and then I just carried on with my military videos. For example, Estonian Reserve soldier analyzes United States aircraft carrier power projection in the world, stuff like this was a title, for example. Did it every day. And based on that foundation, the war started, full-scale invasion war. 2022, 24th of February. And I already had widespread United States viewership, and I was a semi-military channel doing daily updates. So, not updates, but videos about military capabilities. So, for me, also being in Estonia, 2 hours from a Russian border, from any point in Estonia, having strong Russian aggression in the past, like deportations, executions in my family lineage also, was no choice. It was just, it wasn't even, this is how it is now. I'm a military blogger for Ukraine. And for Estonia, of course, because if Ukraine goes, we go.
So you have, even in your personal family experience, you have some experience with Ukraine and Russia.
Every Estonian has somebody in the grandmother was either executed, put to prison, or deported to Siberia. In my case, my grandfather was deported when he was 4 years old as a child. He was put to train with all of the village and sent to Siberia, and half of them died on the train, so they were thrown out of the tracks. And then he got to Siberia. He was beaten there as a fascist, because the Soviets labeled Estonians as fascists back then, for some reason, for the propaganda purposes. And he was beaten there for 4 years, kind of starved, came back, and 8 years old, you come back with a Russian accent into Estonia. You're beaten here also in Estonia. So, and he grew up to be a very, very big and successful man. But I grew up with these stories from my grandfather, so directly I know Russian occupation and what it causes. So if it's going on right now in Europe, like it was, they're also deporting, like they deported my grandfather. I'll do everything I can to prevent that from happening in Estonia.
So you have a big megaphone on YouTube right now. You have getting close to 700,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
How did that change? How did your audience change from when you were doing military blogging, creating videos as part of the Estonian forces, to that date when Russia entered Ukraine? What changed with your YouTube channel?
I remember, when 24th of February is Estonian Independence Day, actually. They ruined it for us now. But they entered, and I immediately started live streaming 7 nights in a row for US, because it's the night when they stay in Estonia, so I didn't sleep much. Those live streams, there was no Western military bloggers. I was the very first and the only one at the first 3 months. Nobody did anything, because nobody knew what to do. People were panicking. But from the very first tank over the border, I was there with a live stream immediately, for hours, for days. So a lot of new people came to the channel, and since I delivered all this information, it was a time of panic and fear and chaos, and I delivered information and tried to make sense of it. I'm in Estonia, and I have this history with Russia. I know how they operate, so I could open up some movements or why they sent some units where, and why is this doctrine like it? Why are men on top of infantry fighting vehicles, not inside? Like all of these questions, I could open them up in a time of huge chaos and fear. So this is why a lot of people came. So the viewership changed quite a lot.
What does it mean to people? Ukrainians, Americans, Europeans. What have you heard from them? That your channel means to them.
Well, my videos are very, very much different than what I'm now. I am now, due to some personal events, I'm quite sad actually and defeated, I feel like. But in my YouTube videos, I'm very upbeat and energetic and smiley and giggly, and I make jokes and I'm goofy almost. And I deliver Ukrainian updates like that. So this gives people the possibility to follow this war without getting tired, fatigued, getting depressed, feeling like you just saw a child die. You don't want that. You do need the information to counter Putin's disinformation, but it needs to be delivered in a way which doesn't take away from a person. And I do that. I give good emotion with the military news.
I've noticed that. I love that that's a deliberate strategy on your part to help people feel upbeat about it. We visited Ukraine twice last year as an organization. So both of those were Utah delegations with legislators, business leaders, other community stakeholders here. And what I heard in Ukraine was that the Ukrainians are optimistic. They know they'll win the war. They just don't know what an actual victory looks like or how much land they would have to cede in a victory. And so despite their optimism, there is this underlying melancholy that they don't know exactly how this all ends. And so I applaud your efforts to bring that optimism, because it has been a long war already, and I'm sure it will be longer. So tell us, you mentioned you're a bit down today. When you came to the office here and got in the studio, we talked a little bit about how your Patreon account, which funds your videos and funds your life and your ability to go do this, was shut down. Tell us about that.
Yes, I do have to open up. You said I'm a little down, but how I feel is this is like one of the toughest setbacks in a whole year, I would say. It's a coincidence that I'm doing this podcast, but yeah, I woke up today to a news that my Patreon account is removed due to hate speech. I'm not a hateful person. I don't hate anybody at all. I don't hate the Russians even. I haven't done any hate speech, not interested in it at all. But if a lot of people report your account for something, you will get removed. And I think it's a Russian information operation. Unfortunately, they're very effective with this stuff, and they can hurt me a lot. So there's no point in hiding that information, because they already know, otherwise they wouldn't attack. So it's sad to see that they have the means to hurt me quite a lot, actually, because Patreon was not to fund Ukraine, it was to fund my personal life. And if my personal life is funded, I really don't have to worry about it at all. And this has really shown in great effect in what I do in Ukraine, because I'm able to just not worry about it and just go to Ukraine, spend more or less or however much time I need there. I can just take a hotel, work with the GUR, do everything I want, and I don't have to worry about it. If you add, okay, where I'm going to get my personal funding, then immediately these missions become a lot more difficult. So yeah, today I lost my whole income today morning. So I don't know now what's going to happen. I'm definitely going to continue doing what I do, but it's just going to be harder. And I think the Russian bots or trolls or whoever they are, they got a great victory over me today. But it's just a battle. It's not the war. So I'll manage. But this is why I'm so down.
No, I sympathize, and it's that funding is free speech, right? This is how you get your message out. And so I hope that whoever's listening to this podcast can support you in trying to resolve that issue. We're certainly going to do whatever we can here at 47G. And if any folks from Patreon are listening, we certainly need to get that resolved. You obviously have things to say about Russia, and they didn't like that. So I think in this case you called them occupiers, which I'll happily call them occupiers myself today on
cancelled
on this on this podcast. Is that why they wanted to silence you?
Yes, I call Russians occupiers, and turns out I'm not allowed to do that. And since I do rely, like, I'm not one of these person who say, "Oh, it's like censorship, free speech. I'm gonna leave the platform." No, my whole income and my life and my security and my relationship and my future children, my mortgage is based on what I make money, right? And in my work in Ukraine is based on how securely I feel with my own funding. So I want to comply with every platform, but I just feel bad that Patreon didn't give me a chance to change this. I guess they would have sent me a letter, okay, we don't like this. I changed it immediately. I'm fine to comply with. I'm gonna be honest here. I'm okay to comply with censorship because as a person I do need to live, and this is this is my job. And if these are the rules of the job, I will follow them to be able to do what I do because I can help Ukrainians very effectively thanks to Patreon and YouTube. And if they choose to censor me, I will go with it as long as I can keep doing it. But if they just remove my account, that's a whole different story. So yeah.
Speaking of funding, you have a large audience and you've been able to use that audience to raise funds for different initiatives in Ukraine. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, my viewers have donated altogether $500,000 through my 5 fundraisers, and every one of them, Jasper, has also been to Kiev. We've driven together there. We have bought cars, drones, night vision, thermal vision, medical equipment, basically everything that would be needed on the front line. And we're talking like not only my funding, but altogether 250 drones, so about 250 cars also. We have researched and developed new prototypes for some certain Ukrainian entities, which I can't name, but yes, like the viewers through funding directly influence the outcome of any certain battle because these drones will be up above, the trucks will be driving, and this is what influenced the battle. So,
what's the status of drone warfare in Ukraine? Drones have taken center stage in terms of the type of warfare we're seeing in this particular conflict. We're seeing drones become more affordable, attritable, things that you can lose in battle. And we are also seeing that Ukrainians are constrained. They need more drones. I've also noticed that jamming is a big part of the discussion in terms of jamming the drone pilots, and Russians actually being able to find Ukrainian drone pilots based on their location and the signals they're putting out from their remotes. So I would love to hear, what's your current thinking on drone warfare, and what do Ukrainians need next?
drones are everything. Who has more drones? I will not give you an answer, kind of say better or faster. It's about the quantity at the moment because both are using jammers and about 50% of them fall down without doing anything. So if you have more, your 50% means more. Whoever has more kamikaze drones will control any certain battle because artillery shells are hard to produce in Ukraine, in Russia, and in Europe. Russia also has a huge deficit. They're importing from North Korea. So drones decide the victory of the battlefield. And both sides have extremely cheap and mass-producible small FPV kamikaze drones. They're very effective. They make an explosion enough to take down a tank. So whoever has more of them and better operators will win that battle.
What about the drone pilots? Are drone pilots in great supply in Ukraine? Are they in danger? But what are drone pilots doing in the army or in the volunteer groups?
They're not in great supply because it takes a lot to train them. It takes a lot of time because you cannot train to be a drone pilot in 2 weeks. And if any civilian thinks they can fly a Mavic drone, then this is nice, but you cannot fly a very fast, agile kamikaze drone. This is like work of art. It takes months to train that. And if you're worse, you will lose more drones, losing more money, losing the battle. So it directly comes down to how good is the pilot. So it takes a lot of train. Ukrainian pilots are better trained than the Russian pilots because in Ukrainian army system, they choose the pilots to be the best of the guys. For example, if you're one of the best of the special forces, the drone crews will take you, and they are allowed to do that. In Russian army, the drone pilots are chosen to be the guys who don't really want to fight, or they cannot be used as meat. They don't go to the front, then they're drone pilots. So it's a worse selection in Russia. They're also good pilots, but if you put the statistics on percentages, then Ukrainian pilots are better trained and they have more experience.
Are the pilots at risk?
Oh yeah, they're high value targets. If you're a pilot, or near a location that is, screaming out the signals, then you will get targeted immediately.
So the drone pilots, their lives are at risk because of the signals that their devices are putting out. So how do they protect themselves? How do they avoid being targeted by a Russian counter strike from a drone?
You cannot really hide the signal. It's not possible really with cheap equipment, so it's really robust. You just cannot be at one location for a long time. And if you fly a mission with a drone, you got to change up the location immediately. You got to be fast and agile. Your truck has to be reliable to all of that. You cannot choose roads which are muddy. Goes down to the simplest details of, okay, if you're going to get stuck on this road and we're a drone pilots, we're going to get strike with artillery, so let's not choose this road.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff.
So President Zelensky recently dismissed his top general, General Zelensky. What does that mean to Ukrainians? How are they feeling about that?
Zelensky was and is still incredibly popular, the most popular political and military leader in Ukraine, more so than Zelensky. But he was a really balanced, in my eyes, a really balanced commander, meaning that if there is a battle, he will take less aggressive action in order to save Ukrainian lives, Ukrainian frontmen. While Syrskyi, who is, the Russians call him the Bakhmut butcher, and Ukrainians call him the hero of Bakhmut, because he pulled out a fighting retreat from Bakhmut, demilitarizing 50,000 Russian personnel and thousands of infantry fighting vehicles and tanks while saving Ukrainian units and pulling out slowly. Fighting retreat, it was a genius maneuver. It's not about losing a city, it's about making the enemy lose as much equipment as possible while taking the city. So he did that good, and he's now the leader of the armed forces of Ukraine, and he is aggressive. He is more, not this fearless, of course Zelensky was also, but he's going to take more risks, which Zelensky is looking for right now, for also political victories and for the Western aid to continue. So we are going to see more losses in the armed forces of Ukraine, of course on the Russian side also, but they don't count. So the losses that count are the Ukrainian ones. And we're going to see more of them because Syrskyi is a different man with a different doctrine. For example, now Ukrainian army is not stockpiling howitzer ammunition anymore. They were before, because Zelensky's attack plan was stockpile them until you have 100,000, then attack for 1 to 2 weeks extremely aggressively, take back some settlements. What Syrskyi is doing is using up all these stockpiles because they destroy Russian equipment and manpower faster, and they save Ukrainian lives by destroying these attackers. So there's not going to be a big counterattack, but a gradual degrading of Russian offensive capabilities due to the use of Ukrainian artillery shells. What else is different is Syrskyi sent extra reinforcements over the Kherson River to Krinky settlement, which is the 300 Spartans of the Ukrainians. About 300 to 500 Ukrainians are holding, tying down 10,000 Russian troops. Russians have not been able to push them back. This is a situation where Ukrainians are surrounded from 3 sides, and Syrskyi decided to send reinforcements in. So sending people into extreme hotspot, very difficult to defend, but it ties up so many Russian troops, so he takes the aggressive action again. So what is going to change is more casualties, but perhaps more results also.
I'm curious, what is Zelensky's future, since he is so popular in Ukraine? You mentioned even more popular than President Zelensky. What does his future look like?
I'm quite sure that he will be part of the armed forces of Ukraine, and it will be in the very top circles. As much as I understand, Zelensky and Zelensky get along quite well. They almost talk daily still. I think he's going to remain in the armed forces, yes. In some other position, I don't think he's going to go into politics.
Interesting. Certainly he could.
Oh, he could, yeah.
Be successful.
But I think he's a patriot and he loves his people, and he's a very smart man. So any kind of political division, right now it's just Zelensky is more popular, but he actually goes into politics. Then it's suddenly a war in politics. It's division. So I don't think he understands the bad aspects of that. I don't think he will do that.
I heard from some Ukrainians when we were there a few months ago that President Zelensky has declined in popularity. What does Zelensky's future look like in Ukraine?
He's going to be the president until all the lands are liberated, because there is a law now there is a law in Ukraine that you cannot have presidential elections when there's martial law, which will continue until Russian have been kicked out of Ukraine. So he will be the wartime president all throughout the war. And after that, I'm pretty sure he will be immediately elected out of the office. Not because he was a bad president or anything, just there are wartime presidents and then peacetime presidents, like Churchill, for example, an amazing leader in wartime. When war ended, not so much.
Ukraine is a democracy, and from my limited view into the country, is quite successful at being a democracy in many ways. Sometimes wars like this, though, produce a different type of country by the end of the war. Is there any risk that we lose that option to have an election and remove Zelensky by the end? Not that I'm advocating for that, just simply advocating for a democratic process.
No, there's no option. Ukraine as state and country exists because European Union is funding it, basically. I'm saying European Union and I'm not saying USA because right now this is the case. European Union is funding the state of Ukraine to exist, and as soon as that stops, the state of Ukraine stops. And we believe in that democracy, they believe in that democracy. So they know very well, the people and the leaders of the country, that they need to continue this, and there are very strong terms for that money to go. The terms are that half of it is a loan actually, but the other half is that they need to show regular fight against corruption that European Union will be auditing and checking. It's not like Ukraine says, okay, we're fighting. It's the European Union who has to see the results, and then we push another 10 billion in, 10 billion in. So they can only exist if they are democratic and anti-corrupt country in the future. If they're not, they will lose everything. That's how black and white it is.
That's fascinating that structurally you're incentivizing democracy through the EU funding. Speaking of funding, in the U.S. Congress, a bill to send more funds to Ukraine has stopped with the House, and certainly we don't have quite the bipartisan support that we did a year ago, even for Ukraine. What does it mean for Europe and Ukraine if the U.S. is no longer funding the Ukrainians?
Europe will fund Ukrainians. Europe has a lot of money. So, if I say a lot, I mean a lot of money. So, right now the money hasn't gone into Ukraine because the big brother is always paying. America has been paying so much. Now, if they're not paying anymore, suddenly European Union passes 50 billion. Suddenly, where did that come from? We have hundreds of more billions to send. And they will be sent because every European nation in the EU, except for Hungary perhaps, is extremely supportive and willing to pay. So in my eyes, and hearing the insider information, talking to European leaders or parliament members, European countries will defend and fund Ukraine until Russia is defeated.
Is it tough making YouTube videos every single day or almost every day about the war in Ukraine?
It's the love of my life, the job of my life. I love it so much, and this is why I'm so sad when Patreon was taken away, because it's a big part of it. YouTube is extremely unstable. It's like a schizophrenia of a job. You never know what's going to happen. You're demonetized the next day. So Patreon gives you stability. I have funding. I just don't have to worry about censorship in YouTube that much because I have patrons. My foundation was taken away, so now my YouTube is also suddenly again very unstable and risky because I rely on it more. And I do enjoy it so much. I want to do it more and more and more, but right now it's very tough.
Yeah, well, I'm confident we'll get this figured out. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today, Artur. It's a pleasure to get to know you, and you're doing really, really important work, and whatever support we can give, we want to do that. So thanks again for being in Salt Lake. We hope you enjoy Utah, and we hope you'll come back.
Amazing state. Thank you so much.